It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time.
Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil on this Friday, January 20th, 2023. We don't have to say 2023 much past this point, do we? We all know we're 2023. I've started writing 2023. Easily.
So we don't write checks anymore, so it's hard to remember.
That's right, exactly. Shelley, happy Friday.
Oh, yeah, happy Friday.
It's wine time.
Here's our little belt.
Today we have a special guest. And by the way, this is 2 guests in 3 weeks. We're on a good start for 2023.
Good job. And we also are video recording.
And we're video recording because we are now a presence on YouTube. Just need to get the archives up and going. With us today is Roshni Guror.
Perfect.
Great. With Naked Wines. You have heard about Naked Wines for the last 3 or 4 weeks because they are a sponsor now on Wine Time Fridays podcast. But more importantly, we're really going to dive in deep on the model of Naked Wines because they really are a different way to buy wine. And as they say, discovering new wines is truly risk-free. And I know this to be true, having had conversations with people that are already Naked Wines customers, I guess, or wine club members. And
or
so
angels, are they called angels?
We call them angels.
Yeah, so it's really because in the research that I did, I saw a price and then I saw an angel price. So Roshni, you're gonna probably need to explain yourself. I mean, explain some of this stuff.
And your background.
And your background. In fact, I think I would like to. You are having a Chenin Blanc different from what we're having. Is that correct?
I'm having this Chenin Blanc. I've had the one you've had before. I really like Patrice's wines. I'm having Carmen Stevens Chenin Blanc, and I also love Carmen Stevens as a winemaker. And I'll go into her a little more, but she's fascinating. Yeah. She's the first Black female South African winemaker, and she was able to do that because of the Naked Wines Angels.
Yeah,
so, and that is worthy of an exclamation point.
Indeed.
That's awesome. So we will actually be tasting through 2 different Chenin Blancs. Shelley and I will be tasting the Patrice Grasset. Did I say that correctly?
You know, I'm not a French speaker. I took Spanish in school, so I'm going to avoid all of the French words as I like to do, other than Loire Valley, which I feel like I've got.
Grasset?
It could be Grasset because of ballet.
Oh,
I think it's, Grasset seems like a good. I can tell you he makes wonderful wines. That's what I can tell you about Patrice. I am not a huge white wine drinker myself, and I really enjoy Patrice's wines.
I saw on the site that people liked his Sancerre also. There was a lot of positive comments about that one.
So is that the Sauvignon Blanc? Because there was one that it was a Patrice Grasset Sauvignon Blanc I saw as well. It's interesting. Shelley comes full of notes. The show notes that I sent you, Roshni, are just a skeleton, and then we go and fill in a bunch of questions that we're going to ask you without your knowledge.
Good.
That's how we roll. But the app I downloaded yesterday, it's really substantial. We love that. There's anything you want to know about the winemakers, the wines, and the regions, and then you start building a profile. We should do a Wine Time Fridays toast with this Chenin Blanc. And then let's get into your background and a little bit of both of these wines. To health, wealth, and abundance, gratitude, romance, and
peace on earth.
I love that. Cheers.
Cheers.
That was nice.
Full disclosure. This house doesn't consume a lot of Chenin Blanc.
Me neither.
Here's the thing.
But this is a nice one.
This is very nice.
It's not sweet. It's nice and dry.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And by the way, also full disclosure, we have had 3 naked wines in the past 2 weeks. We had the Benjamin Darnall La Côte Chardonnay, Chardonnay. And then we had the Christian Vallejo or Vallejo. Chile. It's a red blend. I'm not going to say that.
I know what you're talking about. I remember.
And then we have the DRG, the Darrell Groom Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. All were very good.
Mhm.
And there is always some skepticism on my part when we talk about these models of non-mainstream producers and labels, right?
Mhm.
Because we all know the grocery outlets that and their producers, they buy bulk juice and slap a label on.
Absolutely.
This
But
doesn't,
not all of them.
not all of them. No. We can find, we test some and are like, okay, this is good. We should go get it before they run out. I think
In an hour.
one of the questions that I think is so on the forefront of both of us regarding these wines, it seems like they're available vintage after vintage. I did look at some reviews of the 3 vintages on this Chenin Blanc, and they said you can subscribe or sign up for the next vintage when it's ready. That's a good sign.
So we call it the Never Miss Out program. Basically for our angels, one of the really cool things on our website and our app is, you notice, it's really robust. And one of the parts of it that can kind of get lost sometimes is that as an angel, you can have a sort of digital relationship with the winemakers, and you can leave comments and they'll comment back. And so if you go through reviews, you'll often see the winemaker and our angels chatting. And so over time, they build these relationships. And of course, some of our vintages are incredibly popular. They sell out really quick. And so for people who they know they love, let's say like Matt Parrish's wines, when we announce we're going to make the next vintage, they will sign up for Never Miss Out, maybe 8 months in advance. It's essentially a pre-order, and they can get a case or a half case in some cases. And so we have quite a few winemakers that, because they have such a following and such a presence and they sell out so quickly, that we offer them on Never Miss Out so that they can essentially continue to make the vintages that are so popular while continuing to experiment, if they so choose, with other wines.
Nice. That is good. But you didn't let her tell us about herself.
I was just
You
about to
skipped right
follow up.
All right.
I get so excited, Shelley. You know that. Roshni, what is your background in wine? And what is your background in general? Not just wine, but yeah, tell us about yourself. Wine is great, but we want the whole story.
Well, I guess my background and my background in wine are 2 different things, because I don't have much of a background in wine. My background in wine professionally started when I joined Naked, which was only about 5 months ago. And then before that, I enjoyed drinking wine. And so I went to school in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is wine country in Virginia. And so I have been to every winery on the Monticello Wine Trail. Sorry, mom and dad, during college. And that was sort of my introduction to going to wineries and tasting rooms and trying things, but I wasn't particularly educational in the way that I approached that experience. I was like, yeah, this is a fun way to spend a Sunday.
And you knew what you liked.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you would drink
got to learn
something
that.
and say, I don't know about this. Like, early on, generally the big reds are something that just turns people off. But, you learn that you like these a little sweeter wines, and then you start graduating probably to a little drier, then the reds, but you know what you like, and then you start learning that from your profile.
Yeah, I actually started a little bit the opposite way. My parents are red wine only drinkers. They don't really drink any other alcohol. They only drink red wine. And one of their rules, I don't know where they got it from, but I adopted it in my early drinking age and have not quite gone away, though this bottle does break it, is they don't drink wine with animals on the label, because someone once told them that it was bad. And I don't know where they got that from, but I think it's hilarious. And so when I started drinking wine, was like, oh, well, my parents only drink red wine. I'll only drink red wine. So that's actually my preference, are like big, old reds.
Nice.
And so I'm trying to go backwards and like expand my palate into enjoying whites and sweeter whites. I still haven't met a California Chardonnay that I love, but I'm always going to try them. I'm happy to try anything once. And there are so many lovely white wines out there that I've sort of stopped myself from trying just because I didn't think of myself as a white wine drinker.
And this is really actually a really great example. And we tell our listeners all the time, go at your own pace and try not to listen to other people unless you really trust them in terms of recommendations, but go with what you like. And we have a number of listeners that actually they listen to every week. They love our Wine Time Friday Wine Word of the Week because they learn a little something. Our hope is that we can neither of us are somms, but we have a passion for wine. And we hope to bring people on that can educate and help people along in this journey. So that's kind of cool that you're like, no, I'm just going to stick with reds. No, you're like, I should probably learn a bit about whites. And especially like the late harvest and the ice wines, those are really sweet, but they're going to be.
Oh, I love an ice wine. I think they're so lovely. I never have enough reasons to drink one because when you open it, then I'm like, am I really going to drink a whole bottle of ice wine? So you really need a party.
Yeah.
But they're so lovely. And I've really enjoyed expanding my palate. And that's one thing I really enjoy about working at Naked. We do wine tastings in office every now and then so that we can understand the wines that we of course sell. But one thing I love is that both from the coworkers and the winemakers and the wine team, there's no sense of pretentiousness about the right way to like or enjoy wine. I even feel a little self-conscious now that I work in wine. People are immediately like, oh, should I like this? Or what's a good wine? And I'm like, the good wine is the one you like. It's okay if it's $5. It's okay if it's $60. If you like drinking it, that's great. Start there. And maybe your palate will expand over time and maybe it'll change and maybe it won't. But if you like it, then that's a great place to start. And so I love the general like Naked approach. One thing we try not to do is to become too prescriptive about what a wine smells or tastes like, because and one of our winemakers, Sharon Weeks, who produces our Catu label, that's the name of her wine. She, when she was in office, mentioned that because we all have such different like olfactory libraries and taste libraries, she might not taste something I taste. And it doesn't mean that one of us is right or wrong. It just means I might have access to a different spice palette. Like I grew up on Indian cooking. Those spices are very familiar to me. I often identify them in wine and many people don't, but I will maybe miss like Italian spices I didn't grow up with. And I really love that approach.
Such a great point. A couple of weeks ago, we had Kurt and Joy Grady from Bottle Joy on, and Joy said she was always a little overwhelmed and didn't want to say the wrong thing. And then she said, I'm getting a little honey in this. And they said, well, that's the first time we've heard that. And that's absolutely true on your palate. And by saying that, she said she now had permission to accept what she's tasting. Yeah. So important. And by the way, you talk about you grew up on Indian food and other people on Italian food, or you got American cuisine, whatever that is, those are the things you're going to have in your brain and on your palate.
That's why I taste a lot of licorice in wines, because I had a lot of licorice when I was little.
Well, and again, she mentioned a couple of weeks ago, like frogs, like a swan. Yeah, because as a kid, she was out playing with frogs. Not sure why your mom let you do that, but okay. And so, but that's what we know. We don't know what we don't know. And so we will always have a unique palate because it's ours and only ours. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like this wine that I'm drinking right now, this Carmen Stevens wine, for me, and I grew up in Virginia, like I said, I can taste the honeysuckle, but I spent all of my summers eating wild honeysuckle in the woods. Like I would go on a run and just like stop and eat honeysuckle. And so that's such a familiar taste to me that when I drink this, I'm immediately brought back to like that honeysuckle taste in the woods on a summer afternoon. And so for me, a lot of the wine that I drink, because I am maybe missing like the Somme vocabulary or the perfect way to describe wine in an educational sense, for me, it's often tied to the feeling or experience that I would want to associate this with. Like I would love to be sitting on a porch drinking this in the summer, because unlike a lot of whites for me, this isn't very sweet. It's dry, but it's tart. And I love that tartness. I think it would cut through a summer day so nicely. It's like fruity. It's like a liquefied apple pear salad, but it doesn't have the sweetness. It's just the tartness of those fruits. Like you've just picked one off the tree.
Well,
this has got apple also.
Let's just say your descriptors are coming along just fine, Roshni. The way you did that. We're having I have to do this because we are now going to be on YouTube with this, but this is a Patrice Grasset Loire Valley Chenin Blanc 2021. And it's a French Chenin Blanc. Patrice, that's who it is. Roshni, would you mind showing us yours?
Yes, this is the Carmen Stevens Angel Reserve 2021 Chenin Blanc. It's got a little tiger on it, which I think is cute.
It is cute.
And one thing that I think is really cool about our wines, and I didn't know this necessarily before working in wine, though, of course, I immediately understood it when it was told to me. When you go buy wine in a grocery store, you rarely see the winemaker's name on the label. It'll be the estate or the GM or the owner. And so for a lot of our winemakers, the first time they've ever seen their name on a bottle is with our wines. And I think that's so lovely. Every time I see this bottle, I think, wow, how cool must it be to spend your life waiting for this moment to get to have your name on a bottle. And we really like to lead and finish both with our winemakers. And so I always think it's cool that they get their name on the bottle. It's really their wine.
It is.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. Sure. And ours is fantastic. We're getting a little tartness on this as well.
Yeah, it's sort of a little bit like Australian Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. A little bit on this.
It's delicious.
Stone fruit too.
Yeah.
Lemon zinger, they say. So what is a lemon zinger? It must be a candy.
The candy. Yeah, it's a candy.
So that's again,
that's kind of like
anytime we can bring up Gary Vaynerchuck's name, we do. And a lot of times they'll say, okay, like on a certain wine, I was like, I'm getting Big League Chew. You know, the Big League Chew with it's a bubble gum, right? Or Jolly Ranchers or something.
Yeah, probably the lemon zinger would be much like a Jolly Rancher lemon.
Yeah.
It's like a sour Jolly Rancher.
This is a very clean Chenin Blanc. Very clean. This is going to go down too easy.
I would actually say I think that's a trend with some of Patrice's wines. They are often, I think, more than the sum of their parts. Like they feel really simple when you drink them, but you want to keep drinking it because it's not so simple that you get bored drinking it. It's just so clean and so fresh. And I think that, like you said, it goes down really easy. They're deceptively uncomplicated. And in that, I think they are so complex.
Cut through summer is what you said, right? I think it cuts through, although we're having nearly a 50-degree day here. It's 45 degrees outside at the time of this recording.
Amazing. Only a couple of weeks ago, it was 0.
Less
than. And I think it's going to be quite I didn't think of the sort of juxtaposition of giving you both that and the von Strasser to try next. The Rudy is like, it punches you in the face. It's like strong wine. And I would recommend even decanting it or letting it breathe maybe while we're chatting, because that wine could love a breath.
So if you'll notice the notes that Roshni sent us, it says right off the bat, we should taste it right out of the bottle and then let it open up a little bit. So I think we will open it in a moment because we do really want to pour it out of the bottle. I wanted to find out kind of this angels thing.
Yes.
And the archangels.
Ooh, the archangels.
Yeah, the archangels. So are archangels ones who make a lot of comments, or are they ones who particularly love that winemaker?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that right off the bat. They, I think, like adopt winemakers is sort of the way that we think of it. And they sort of give a helping hand to new angels around the website. And so they get like extra perks into being angels. They basically get like maybe early releases to vintages. They get, like I said, like a higher presence on certain winemakers pages that they're fairly loyal to. They help other angels find their way around the website.
Nice.
And then they
It's
get
a
like sort of
little
samples
bit-
of wine
It's a
and
little bit social media,
A little
and
bit.
community oriented also.
Yeah.
I saw somebody who had made 18,000 comments. That is a lot.
yes, we have some very, very loyal angels. And so the angel model is really the like bread and butter of who we are. So the name comes from angel investors from the world of startups. And to get to the angel model, you first have to go through what the wine industry is today, which is largely holdovers from the Prohibition era. So we've got the 3-tier system.
Right.
And that is just how the entire wine industry still works. And so you've got producers, wholesalers, and retailers.
Yep, exactly.
And each one obviously has their own markup along the way because everyone's got to be profitable. And that's not in and of itself anyone's fault. And so by the time that you as a consumer are buying your wine in a grocery store, it's already been marked up each of those times. And so the wine that you're paying is sort of, and to be fair, as consumers, we never just pay for the initial product. There's always things that go in the middle, but you're paying for way more than just the wine. And so what we end up with is that prices of bottles don't linearly scale with the quality of what is in the bottle for very long. And so Naked sort of came about to disrupt that system because the two people that don't benefit from the 3-tier system, because many people do benefit, are customers who pay more for what's in their bottle and winemakers who don't see much of that markup despite making what's in the bottle. And I think the other thing people maybe don't know a ton about is that the wine industry in and of itself is very homogenous in terms of who is making, owning, producing, selling. In 2009, I think it was something like 82% of US wine was owned by a global conglomerates. There aren't very many independent winemakers or independent wineries. And then 3 wine firms account for about 50% of wine sales. Wow. So Naked sort of wanted to come in and disrupt that model. And so that's where the angel model came into existing. Basically, angels pay $40 a month into a piggy bank. And that wine is used to fund our hundreds of independent winemakers so that they can focus on making wine. So a lot of winemakers, when they're at large estates, they have to worry about finances and marketing and bottling and production. We do all of that. We take on all of the financial risk. We take on all of the responsibilities for marketing. Our winemakers, they just make wine. And so they use the money from our angels to make this wine. And then in exchange, as an angel, you get angel pricing, which is what you're seeing on the website. It's about 60% off retail pricing. And you use the money that you've been putting into your piggy bank to buy wine whenever you're ready. And so unlike a typical subscription, you're not going to just wake up with 6 bottles of wine outside your door and forget that you'd ordered it and been like, oh, I forgot to pause this month. We don't do that. The money sits in your bank account until you're ready to purchase. And I mean that quite literally. If you want that money back and you forgot to cancel your angel subscription for a year and you're like, oh, I forgot that I was putting $40 a month away, you can have that back. It's not ours until you buy wine with it. Wow. So while we sort of use terms like wine club or subscription club, there's no membership fees. You're not just getting wine delivered, you're picking the wine, you're establishing those relationships with winemakers you like. As you start to rank wines, we'll start to recommend ones to you that you might like. And then all the while, that money that you're giving in is sort of pre-funding those vintages that we talked about earlier to know, hey, people really love this Matt Parrish or this Patrice Grasset. Let's make sure that we're funding another vintage of this. And so we know that because angels are putting this money into their piggy bank.
Does one, when they sign up for Naked Wines, have to put in credit card information?
Yes, you do. And you can tweak the amount that you put into your angel piggy bank.
Very interesting.
It doesn't have to be $40. That's our standard, and the vast majority of angels stay there. And it can go down, I want to say maybe to 20, and then it can go up as much as you'd like. You do need credit card information, but you won't ever be purchasing wine without your knowledge. And like I said, you can think of those $40 piggy bank deposits more as a credit card hold, because you can request to just have that back at any point. And it's not like calling Comcast where you're going to be on the line with a robot for like 5 hours to do it. You will get a human immediately. Our customer service is incredible. And if you don't like any bottle of wine that you can get it refunded, which I think is great, because buying wine is terrifying because you never know if you're gonna like
Just for the
something.
record, Roshni, there's never been a time where I've been on hold for 5 hours with Comcast. It's usually much more than that,
Yeah.
much longer.
Much longer.
So you don't have to necessarily be an Angel member. You can
Yeah.
actually just go on and purchase
Yes,
And-
you
At the
can.
non-angel price.
at the non-Angel price.
Yes,
So I think that's
you
what
can go on and purchase. You can.
because he's like, well, I don't pay him $40 a month.
Who
I
said
just
that?
Stan.
Oh.
And he's
Yeah,
like,
you can just once
Yeah.
you go through sort of our acquisition offer and you make your first purchase with us, you can just buy wine as if we're a regular retailer. I wouldn't recommend it because the prices are so good when you're an Angel that I would recommend just putting that money aside anyway, because you're going to spend it. So for me, like I let mine accrue for a couple of months and then do like
Sure.
one case every 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
But the deal is so good. Like I think the Carmen Stevens that I'm drinking on our site is only $9.99.
wow.
Which is a steal of a deal. I think it's about $20 if you're not. And then
Yeah.
I think Patrice is something like $15.99 on our site, maybe. And then
It's
it's
$15 and it's $31.99 or $30.99 for the bottle.
exactly. So I think like the deal is so great. You're not going to find a better $15 bottle of wine in the grocery store. That I can tell you. Like there are absolutely, like if you want to go into the world of fine wine and find your specific dealers of fine wine, that is a different world. But like you're never going to find a better like $30 Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon than the one you're going to get on our website, because you're just not going to find one for $30 in a store. The markups every single time that happen to get it into that store are going to prohibit them being able to sell it for that price. And that's sort of the problem that we solve. Plus it comes to your door, and as a millennial, I love not having to
Right.
leave my house.
You're having the Camille Benitez? Is that what
No,
you said?
the Carmen Stevens.
Carmen Stevens. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
she is the first Black female winemaker in South Africa. And so that's
So
in and of itself is very cool. We have a lot of really, really cool winemaker stories. Kyla Burke is another one that comes to mind. She came to us through the Roots Fund, which is an organization dedicated to increasing Black, Indigenous, people of color representation in the wine industry. And Naked Wines contributed a substantial amount of money to their program to help diversify the wine industry from the root up. And the first wine she ever made was a Chardonnay, and it just won an editor's choice for wine enthusiasts with 92 points. Her first wine. She was a 9th grade teacher before this, and she's now a phenomenal winemaker, and that's entirely funded. She's a Black woman through the Angel model. Like that's who this allows to thrive. But it also allows people like Patrice, who are 3rd generation French winemakers who come from this incredible legacy, to do things on their own terms, as opposed to the terms that are mandated by commercial production or expectations of the wine industry.
So he's a winemaker at a winery, which is Villebois.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's the winemaker. He doesn't own that, unlike the other one we're going to have, which is Rudy von Strasser. And he actually owns his winery, but then he still works with you guys because he has the ability to experiment a little more with some different things.
Yeah, a ton of our winemakers work with us. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they work with us. One of them is creative freedom. They aren't as inhibited by the expectations of what a wine from a certain varietal should taste like. And so they get to experiment and create things that are slightly off the beaten path. Sometimes it's, for example, I think Antonio Diaz Martin, his winery burned down and Angels helped rebuild it so that he could continue to make wine. And Patricia Benitez, she finds high altitude vineyards from small villages that have been like forgotten, and then revitalizes their local economies by making wine from those vineyards. So there's just like 100 incredible stories of these winemakers, and they work with us for a variety of reasons and motivations. But at the crux of it, it's that they can make wine on their own terms.
And that's what we love about wine, the stories. There's so many different stories, both in the wines themselves and the winemakers and the wineries. A lot of different things.
We are about to take a break, but before that, I wanted to ask, because you mentioned there, some of the wines are entered into, like the Wine Enthusiast, that costs money to send wine to all of these judges, right? Is that the decision of the winemaker? Is it the decision of Naked Wines, or is it a collaborative thing?
Most of our decisions that we make are collaborative. We have a whole wine team that is entirely dedicated to our portfolio management and how we expand winemakers and why we choose to expand. For example, we might be looking into new AVAs or new regions. We might want to have a presence in, for example, the Pacific Northwest, where we've recently expanded into Washington and Oregon. And so that team is largely dedicated to making sure that we have like robust representation of winemakers. And so I think the one I'm drinking right now won a silver at the Decanter World Wine Awards. But I think that's, like you said earlier, I think there's a lot of skepticism, and often deserved, about these direct to consumer wine subscription clubs and grocery store wine subscription clubs, because they are most frequently not very good. And that doesn't mean that they aren't benefiting somebody. There are people who are maybe looking for something like that. And so part of the reason why we want to make sure that our wines are entered in these competitions is because it reassures you that this is not just bulk label wine stuck with a pretty graphic design piece on it. Like a real person has made this wine and it's been tested and bottled, and we stand behind it by entering it into these awards. And then of course there is some sense of like, look, someone else who isn't us is telling you that this is a good wine, this is worth drinking. It's a sense of objectivity. And even though wine is very subjective, it's nice to say like, look, this exists in the world of commercial wine. It's not just something that is on our site, because for us, it is kind of a selling point that a lot of our wines are exclusive to us. It's why we can sell them at the prices we can. But I can understand why that concerns people, because they can't find any external validation of the quality.
This is too good of a deal.
Right. It feels too good. So it's really useful for us. Exactly. And so it's useful for us to say, look, like Wine Enthusiast gave it 92 points. Like that means something, because you can walk into a Total Wine and compare that to other 92-point wines. And so that is something that we're dedicated to. Sort of the next phase of the business is really emphasizing that we've put a lot of time and money as a company into the quality of our wines, and not necessarily our flashy marketing or branding. And so wanting to spread that awareness that like at our core, we are a wine company who cares about quality.
And I don't know how many angels you have, but I'm guessing that they don't keep we know, like I said, a handful of Naked Wine angels, and they're not quiet about it. They are not quiet about it at all. It is not it's Naked Wine. Don't tell anybody. They're like, yeah, it's Naked Wine. It's one of the best things we've done. And so that's pretty cool. Yes. Okay.
All right. I still have to open mine. This is a fun fact about me, which I think is really demonstrative of how I am unpretentious about my wine. I really struggle with the Waiter's Friends wine openers. So I use the wing style, which I know is recently learned is not cool, but I really like them. I think they're easier, and I really struggle with the wine.
This is the one we use, and it's the first time that we've actually been able to show it, because we're now on YouTube. But it's this little thing like this. This one's actually broken, but it still works. There's the foil cutter. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's built in, and then just the regular corkscrew.
So it doesn't have a little knife on it, so you can actually take it on your travel
planes.
Bags.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yep. Yeah. And then we use an Osso. Only just recently got one. Shelly claims that we have one somewhere in the house. We just can't find it. So we know where one is. And those are for the really delicate corks on an older wine.
Those are the ones that it's the twist and pull, right?
Yep, yeah, exactly.
No, it's not a twist and pull. It's got two little things, and you put them in the cork like that, and then pull it out.
Got it. Okay.
You twist when you pull it out.
Yeah, but it's not.
No, it's not a corkscrew. It's two prongs that go in right next to that used to be the only one I ever used.
Really?
Was that one. Yeah. So we just poured this, and you've already done this, Roshni, but I will do it also. This is the 20. Oh man.
Hard to read backwards.
Yeah, it is. This is the 2020 Strasser collection, Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It is no secret to our listeners that we have actually drank a lot of Napa Valley Cab as of late in the last 3-4 months with our partnership with Cuvée Collective in the NFT world. And so this will be really interesting. I am super excited about this. So hashtag cheersing.
Cheers.
Got a terrific nose.
I really love Rudy's wines, and I also had the pleasure of meeting him when he came to our office. And I would say when I gift a bottle of wine to people, I often gift this one or a few other von Strasser collections, because I think it is like delightfully indulgent, but could still be a weekday wine. It feels special, but not so special that you're going to save it forever and never drink it, which is what my parents do when I give them really nice bottles of wine. And so I just think
they never drink it.
Yeah, they'll be like, we have to wait for a special occasion, and that it never comes.
Well, so there's open that bottle night for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last Saturday of February, open that bottle night, and that's for exactly those wines, because you make the wine the event, not the event. Because most events are like, oh, I don't know if this wine it's better than this event. Well, you know what? Then it goes over the hill. Then it's bye-bye, you know?
Yeah. This is delicious.
This is fantastic. We have a Wine Time Fridays rating system that I meant to send you, Roshni. I forgot. It's on our website. So if you took a peek at our website, you would see that. But they're all P words because Shelley is alliteration. She loves it.
I love alliteration too.
The very last one, the bottom rung, is pleth. Try to spell that, pleth, which is
Plehhh.
Yeah,
Pleagth. I think pleth, something like that. But this is nowhere near that. The very top is phenomenal. I personally would say this Chenin Blanc was phenomenal. This right now is practically perfect. But I'm guessing in the next 5 or 10 minutes,
phenomenal.
It will inch its way up that rung to phenomenal, because it's already really good.
It's really good, and I'm not getting super heavy tannins on this one.
No, I would say it's like medium, but the low end of medium on tannins.
Yeah.
Which I also think is like, I wouldn't call very many red wines. I'm not calling this red wine a porch pounder, because the tannins, I think, prohibit porch pounding, but these type of like doesn't sit on your tongue forever, quite smooth, kind of rich and velvety, I think could be a red wine porch pounder.
This is a 2020, so it's still very young.
It is. Yeah.
A week ago, this was 2 years old. Now it's 3 years old, because we're in 20.
And that's also why I think so many of our angels love getting like the case of the vintage that they love, is because they just aged 4 of them and drank 2 right off the bat.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, that's fun. You could drink one every year.
Yeah, I mean, then you see the evolution of it too. You'll have that vertical. So,
right. So there's a little bit of raisin in here. It's a fruity wine.
It is fruity. It's like very stone, plum, cherry.
Yeah, not as sour cherry as some Cabernets.
No, but there's something earthy
delicious.
in this.
It's really delicious.
And I can't put my finger on it. Can't put my nose on it.
So Rudy, I saw, was the founding father of the Diamond Mountain District, which is an AVA, a little AVA in Napa.
Yes.
And he was actually wanting to be king of hard cider.
Yeah.
That was his plan, until he went over to Robert Mondavi and spent a year there studying. And then he fell in love with wine. I wonder if Lorraine was there at the same time. It was like, well, that was 1999, I guess, something like that.
I think she left. I think she might have still been there.
She might have.
Yeah, I think you should leave in 04, something like that.
05, yeah.
Yeah, so she probably was around there. The Diamond Mountain District, I believe, is an AVA that is at least 400 feet. It's somewhere between 400 and 2,200 feet.
Elevation.
Yeah, which is really actually kind of interesting. Annual rainfall, about 40 inches to 55 inches, give or take. And then the soil is residual uplifted soils of volcanic region. So,
and I think
just a little.
Rudy mentioned that because it was 2020 was quite a hot year, that as opposed to past Strasser collection blends, the wine was a bit sort of larger, both in alcohol and in tannin than typical because of the heat. And I believe he said 2021 might have a similar output just because of the fires in California and the increased temperature. And the fires are so interesting because, I mean, they're horrifying, but they are really challenging winemakers. And I know a few of our head winemaker, Frank, maybe shouldn't say this on air, snuck into our winemaking facility when it was off limits to check on the wine because it can't be exposed to that type of heat.
Here's the deal.
Thankfully it was all fine, but
you got to do what you have to. You have to do what you have to do. Okay. I'm sorry. Sometimes you have to break rules. We're talking millions of dollars worth of product.
Yeah.
You're going to let go bad because of someone who says, yeah, no one should go in because of the fires and the heat. And it's like, sorry, this is my livelihood. This is my passion. And that doesn't bother me in the least break some of them because of the commitment that you have made to your craft. I think is actually very noble.
I think so too. And I think it's a really hard question facing winemakers in the next 10 years. Things like climate change are obviously going to affect soil quality, temperature, growing season, rainfall. And one of the things that I learned through Naked is that, and I didn't know before, is that winemakers are financially on the hook years in advance for things like those. And so we take that financial responsibility off our winemakers. So we bear that brunt, which is great for them, but I can understand the stress and that's why a lot of winemakers have chosen to work with us in recent years. But the stress of having to sign contracts 5 years in advance for a vintage when you don't know if your state will be on fire is going to become more and more unpalatable, pun not intended, as we start to get less control over our environment.
Well, in Bordeaux, they have approved a whole many more red wine varietals and white wine varietals because of the climate change, and they know they're going to have to shift. What was it? The wines of England, right? The UK.
Yeah, now they can grow some Bordeaux.
Yeah, and they're actually making really good champagne quality sparklers, not called champagne.
Not called champagne.
Because of this change, and the people in Champagne are like, okay, we need to figure this out because they're taking some of our market share through no fault of their own, other than, they are charging through the nose because of the real estate and the history and that sort of thing. But I think it's just remarkable because those winemakers and wineries that are pivoting, that see what's coming up, watching the trends, you don't do knee-jerk reaction, but you have to have a plan in place. And so actually it's going to benefit you at Naked Wines and then ultimately the consumer, because some of these winemakers are just tired of the stress of signing those 5-year, 10-year contracts with vineyards for the fruit.
And I had never thought of this. When Rudy came to visit the office, one thing he did was he brought grapes from the vine so we could taste the grape, which was very cool. I had never done that at any of the vineyards I had visited, partially because a lot of Virginia vineyards do not use the grapes they grow yet. They're not mature enough. And I've been to a lot of Colorado vineyards, and similarly, they mostly don't use, most of them use grapes from Paonia and not necessarily, or Palisade, and then ship them in, and they're okay. There's some okay wines there, but they are a very young area, and so they're still coming into maturity. But I'd never tasted the grapes from a Chardonnay grape varietal. And that was such an interesting experience for me to be like, oh, I don't know why in my head I just assumed table grapes. Obviously they're not table grapes, but like you assume they're going to look like table grapes and taste like table grapes. And you start tasting these individual grapes and it's like phenomenal, the amount of variety that these tiny little fruits, you're like, wow, I absolutely see how we got this from that grape. And I had never considered it before. Rudy was like, here's what these grapes look and taste like. And here's how you identify why this is going to be good or bad and why it comes down to soil quality or age or whatever. And, you know, one thing he said that really stuck with me, he said, a bad winemaker can take the best grapes in the world and make a better wine than the best winemaker taking the worst grapes in the world. And it really puts into perspective why we fight over these very small AVAs with certain soil qualities, because at the end of the day, there are not very many of them and they're only getting smaller.
The proven track records on these AVAs, right? Shelley will say, if you want to know what tannins are, take a seed and bite into it and bite into that. There's your tannins. It would really serve, and this is, we're going to put this on you, Roshni. Go to the higher ups, go to the suits at Naked Wines, the ones with the ties, the ones that work 2-3
No, but nobody's, it's not a tie wearing company.
There you go.
No tie.
Go to those decision makers and say, yeah, for sure, Washington, Walla Walla, and Washington, Oregon. Yeah, it's all well and good, but Idaho wines are coming around.
Okay.
It's actually very impressive. We have, I think we missed the last 2 months, but we've been trying to do one Idaho wine a month after we did Idaho Wine Month in June. We were blown away by the quality of these wines down the Snake River Valley and things like that. So, be ahead of the trend. Stay one step ahead.
I will put it into the ears of the powers that be.
Yeah. And you can say Wine Time Fridays something.
Will do.
Yeah. All right.
I'm pulling for Virginia wines personally.
You know what? We've got one Virginia wine.
We do?
In our cellar. Yep. Well,
did
you're
we
going to
get it?
ask the question. Well, we got it, I think, when the Divas were in Virginia and Pennsylvania and Philadelphia and stuff. I will pull that up while you are asking your question.
Yeah, we went to a little winery, right? Somewhere. Oh, in Lancaster, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there. What was I going to say?
I don't know. You picked up your notes.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, moving on to the wine word of the week.
Oh, yeah, we are moved. I know we have a Virginia one. I'm just saying. You need to finish your red so we can do an open pour.
This is an open pour. Now that it's sitting here, we don't have to re-pour it. It's probably even more open than the bottle.
I think you're not telling the truth.
Let's see. That's in the bottle.
It's never a bad idea to have a second pour.
No, and by the way,
To validate.
it has already evolved.
Yeah.
It's
Now we're going to have to find something red meat to put so we can drink this for dinner.
Well, we just had steak last night. We might have to have
Another steak.
or taco salad. Okay, so yes, and it's the greatest hit, the greatest song you never heard podcast, Wine Time Fridays, Wine of the Week.
Do you want me to say that again?
Yes, those on YouTube saw me fumble over that, but those on the audio will
Can
not.
edit that out?
No, no. The greatest song you never heard podcast, Wine Word of the Week. There we go. And it is fermentation. And do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because this is actually kind of an important word in the wine industry, wine world.
Yes, here comes the dog. The process by which sugar in the grape juice, or any juice really, like you could ferment pickles, is converted to alcohol, CO2, and heat by yeast cells when no oxygen is present. High alcohol levels eventually cause fermentation to stop, or the yeast runs out of sugar that can process. So,
yeah, it is the true science behind winemaking, is this fermentation process. And
part of it.
Well, there's so much science in all of winemaking.
Mm-hmm.
Really, from the growing of the grapes in the terroir, harvest, crush, and then the whole process of now it's making the wine in the lab. Oh, did I call it? Roshni?
Yeah.
It's Roshni.
Yes, you keep saying Guror.
Roshni, I expect you to correct me every time I'm wrong
She's not here to correct you.
with your name.
I think you did a good job.
Yeah, well, I'm adding letters that don't exist.
That's just the wine talking.
I hope
Oh,
not.
no.
I've had like the total of like less than a glass. If that's the case, that's sad state of affair. This, by the way, this Cabernet Sauvignon is opening up very nicely. You are absolutely correct on this, Roshni. Got the name right this time.
Nailed it.
It is really, really nice.
Did you say what the alcohol is?
No, it's 14.5. This Cabernet Sauvignon is 14.5. The Chenin Blanc is 12%.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you would expect that though.
Well, I mean,
This is pretty big alcohol for a California Cabernet. And, in Washington, their
think this is
Cabernets
the
and their
going rate.
blends are huge.
yeah,
Like 15.
they're starting to push
5.
15%, but the California cabs, the Napa cabs, they're starting to get up into the 14s.
Yeah. And is that because of the heat? Probably.
Probably, yeah. The harvest in 2022 in California started in August. Okay, that's nearly unheard of.
Mhm.
That is really early because of the heat that was down there. On the same token, in Washington, it was a late harvest because it's such a wet winter or wet spring. So,
And that's really the science of it all, that they have to just know like the back of their hand, because the fermentation might be prescribed to be for a certain amount of time. I think the Chenin Blanc that you're drinking was between 7 and 15 days in stainless steel. But I know when Rudy was in office, he was mentioning because of the heat, heat converts, I'm going to get this entirely incorrect, but I think you might be able to correct me, converts the sugars to alcohol. And that's why it can become more alcoholic. And so you can't control that after a certain extent. Like that biology is going to do what biology is going to do.
right.
And so you only have so much control over yeast and time. And so you have an end output in mind, but ultimately, if you have a fire going on around you or a hot summer or whatever, it might be 2020 was a hot summer, then you're going to end up with a more alcoholic wine than intended, just because that's how the conversion process is going to happen. And your option is to either pull the aging process and have a different taste profile, or have the taste profile you want with a higher alcoholic content.
And like you mentioned, the fires, sometimes you just have to pull the trigger and get this fruit off the vine so you don't have smoke taint, because then you're in a whole other world of
Totally
problems. Yeah.
Let me taste your wine that came out.
Ooh, okay. You do that. Get my cooties. All right. God, this is really opening up well.
Isn't it nice? Like, it just really takes the time to breathe. And I think of it as a great party wine for that reason, because you have your icebreaker. Everyone's just come in over your first glass. And then by the time everyone's warmed up and pouring that second glass, it has come to life. And so you're sitting around, you're just chatting, and in the conversation, you get lost. And over that time, that wine is breathing. So by the time someone remembers to pour that second round, it's so open and lovely. And it's like drinking a different bottle of wine.
It really is. It's, they have all these fancy decanters, right? And we've got a couple of them that you pour the wine through and it aerates it and it like decants this glass of wine right away, so you don't have to taste it right out of the bottle. To me, that's no fun. I mean, isn't it fun to, like you just mentioned, you start tasting the evolution as the bottle, as you pour more of the bottle, it has evolved over a period of, to finish a bottle, 3-4 minutes? So sorry, I meant 45 minutes to an hour. You will get that evolution. Well, and that's another thing. Yeah, if you can really stretch it out that long, then you really get to see that evolution. That's a lot of fun.
So if you have a lot of people, you need 3 bottles. You pour half a bottle from each.
One thing that I used to do on like really cheap bottles of wine that I would drink in college, it was a tip from my sister-in-law who owns what is now a Michelin star restaurant. Very cool. And she said, if you ever have cheap wine, you can decant the whole thing into a blender and blend it for 10 seconds and it just obviously incredibly quickly aerates it.
Yes,
But I think it takes all the fun out of it. It's great if you're drinking bottom shelf CVS wine, but if you're drinking something like this, that is kind of a work of art in a bottle, like just take the time, let it breathe.
Take the time. Exactly. Hey, you can plug a restaurant if you'd like.
Well, for any DC listeners, it's called Rooster and Owl.
Rooster and Owl in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's a great restaurant. I'm not biased at all.
Our millions of listeners, there are, I think 3.2% are from the DC area. I'm making this up. I'm sorry.
So how did she come up with that name?
It's because her husband, who is the chef, they have opposite schedules, morning rooster, night owl. And so that's where the name comes from.
I love it.
That's cute.
Yeah, their second restaurant, which is slated to open soon, is named after their second daughter. And I was like, what does the other one not get a restaurant? Like, where's the first daughter?
Yeah,
you're gonna have to have three.
So that's going to be the third restaurant, gets the first daughter's name. And it's going to be there, hopefully gunning for 2 stars.
Nice. That'd be awesome. Shelley, what are some of the wines that we had? Oh, do I have them down there?
No.
Nope, I have them on my notes because I forgot that I hadn't. Yes, so some of the wines that we had this week, we had a Christian Vallejo red blend from Chile. Roshni, do you know that one?
I have had that one, yes. That
is a naked wine. That was fantastic. Again, another very easy to drink wine. We had an Accomplice Rosé, and we had a Powers AVA, I think that's supposed to be Collection, Grenache, are some of the wines that we had this week. Because we're recording this a little bit further before we're actually publishing, we're scrambling to get wines that we've had because it's short turnaround. But anyway, and next week, so I put these in a different order. We have Ferment Day coming February 1st, National Rosé Day in Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so we're okay with that because rosé all day, right? That's February 5th.
All day, every day.
All day, every day. And then International Syrah Day is the 16th of February. And so next week, what you can expect, could we be having our second ferment on Wine Time Fridays? We could be. We don't know.
Do you know if Naked Wines carries any ferment?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
So on the app, on some of these off the beaten path varietals, is there a way of searching like for a Tannat or I don't know, an Albarino or a Vino Verde? Or...
You can search by grape varietal entirely, and there's like a million. So if you go to wines, you can go to all wines, and then there's like other filters. There's so many filters, and so you can do by price.
Lots of filters.
Yeah, because we know like ultimately we know who our angels are, and the people who want to put money towards this account. I'm really losing light in this sunset really happened. But ultimately, like the people who are angels, they want to come to the site and really pick what they want. They're not people who want random wine showing up to their door all the time. And so, yeah, they want to try new varietals. Like our head winemaker is Slovenian. And so he has some Slovenian grapes. Is he Slovenian or is he Slovakian? I'm going to check that one. It's all to say he has some wines, some grapes he uses in the home country and then comes here and bottles them, which is really cool. But you can search by grape, country, wine type, alcohol, content, dietary. So if you're like want a vegan wine or a vegetarian wine, we do have that specification in case that's a something that matters to you. You can search by style, which we've like sort of distilled into something like fruity red or crisp white, etc. Some things you're used to hearing in the wine world. You can search by region. You can search by rating. There are so many filters, and you can even search by your personalized recommendations, because as you rank wines, our algorithm will help you choose the next wine for you. And as someone who doesn't know a ton about wine, but has really been enjoying the process of learning, I've found the algorithm to be pretty good.
That's nice.
Trying to learn, because I have liked what it's given to me, and I have ranked ones that I haven't enjoyed as much. And I think it's been pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Algorithms get a bad name because that, you know, the Facebooks and Twitters and Instagrams of the world, but then of course
Sure.
the TikTok algorithms are pretty good.
You can also always call our customer service or our wine team, and they will help you pick a bottle. They are all really well versed in everything we sell. And if you tell them this is what I'm looking for, they'll help you put together a case, and they are stellar.
I love this. You know, any of our listeners, all they have to do is go to nakedwines.com/winetime Fridays. They get $100 off their first 12 bottle case.
Nice. I mean, that's substantial.
It's a good deal. It's honestly,
really is.
It's a really good deal. And you get some really excellent wines in that first case. And you can choose a red case, a white case, or a mixed case. I remember for my acquisition pack, I chose all reds because I am a primary red wine drinker.
Yeah.
And I really loved drinking my way through it. And it taught me a lot about the types of wines that I might like from the site. And I think a lot of things, like a lot of preconceptions you might have about the wines you like, are challenged by that first box. You might, I don't know, for example, Syrah, you might have a Syrah that doesn't fit the preconceived notions of what you think of as a Syrah, which I think is really fun.
It is fun. I mean, you're going to have a Carmenere from Washington that tastes different from a Carmenere from Chile or Argentina, right?
Definitely.
You're going to have a Sauvignon Blanc that tastes differently from New Zealand as you will from California or Washington. It just the terroir.
Or the Chenin Blanc, like this one that we're having is from France, and you're having one from...
Where's your Chenin
South
Blanc?
Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, of course. Yeah. And so, again, different terroir. It's really, really fun.
And I think that that Christian Vallejo wine that you had earlier, I think you had the Cabernet Sauvignon blend, right? Is that what you had?
It was a Cab Sauv. It had... Oh, I've got it right here.
One of the interesting things about that wine, I think it's the 2019 Cab Sauv. It's a fully holistically approached wine. So they used wild yeast only. There's no adding, no thinning, no filtration. It's like the pure flavor of the terroir. And I think that's so interesting. Like, that's a completely different experience than you're going to get off of another Cab Sauv blend.
And this Cab Sauv, 65%, Carmenere is 14, Cab Franc 11, and Syrah 10. And it was really good. But do most of the winemakers, do they make more than just one type of wine or one?
It depends on, honestly, it depends on their personal interest. Some of them really specialize in a varietal because that's what they have on their land and that's what they want to hone on. But because we offer so much creative freedom, sometimes they want to branch out and try something else. I would say most of our winemakers make a few varieties.
Yeah. What is your personal favorite wine that Naked Wines sells?
I mean, it's
tasted.
I
know it's a hard one.
Question. I think it is probably... This is a weird choice. It's not available anymore. It is a Rudy wine. It's his port or his port style wine. I loved it and I tried to buy a bottle and it sold out too quickly. So I only had it in office, and then I tried to steal a bottle from our office and found they were all empty. So that was a huge bummer. And then I really like Ana Diego Draper's wines. She's Chilean, I believe. And I think her wines are just beautiful and easy to drink and a crowd pleaser that's interesting, which is like my favorite genre of wine to have in my house, is like just a slightly interesting crowd pleaser, because when people come over, I want to be able to have them drink something that tastes different than what they're getting in the grocery store, but isn't something that requires a really sophisticated palate. And then the reason I sent you this Rudy wine is I really like it. Like I said, this is the wine that I've gifted to many people because I think it feels like a very special wine that is not so special that you can't just drink it on a Wednesday. I think of it as an everyday indulgence wine. And for a lot of people, spending $30 on a bottle of wine is an indulgence, but this is a $60 wine in stores. And so for $30, I'm like, yeah, like have a great Wednesday, draw a bath, sit with this wine. It's lovely, but it's just an everyday indulgence. So that's probably my winner.
So the Ana Diego Draper Amador Dolce Forte.
I've had 2 bottles of that. I've got to say, I have 2 full bottles of her port.
That's a 500 milliliter bottle we have sitting in our cellar.
I love that port. Like I said, I've had 2 bottles of it. I have a third in my house. There are very few things I drink more than once because there's so many things to try that
exactly.
I love that port. I will say I like Rudy's port like the tiniest bit more, but it's sold out. I think Anna makes a really lovely, I think Tempranillo that I really liked. I think her wines, like I said, are really good. And then Rudy, I think is my sort of like go-to, I know is reliably good, kind of slightly on the traditional side, but not boring. And then for whites, anytime I have to recommend a white to anybody, I go Patrice, which is why I sent that to you as well. My mom turned 60 and I obviously bought all the wine for the party and featured all Patrices as my white wine selection.
Oh, that's so cool. What a great nod to her. Hopefully you talked to Rudy von Strasser when he was in the office and said, dude, got to get some more of this port style wine.
I know. I was like, I had it sitting in my cart and I was like, okay, I was just waiting to hit my shipping minimum and get a little more credit put in my account. And I was like, I'll wait one more month and then order a bottle of the port, and then it sold out. And I was like, no, I couldn't have waited.
So there is a shipping minimum to get free shipping?
Yes. The shipping minimum for free shipping is $200. It's pretty reachable with a case, not difficultly. You can order in 6, 9, 12, 15. I mean, you can go up infinitely, obviously.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think the minimum is 6. Sometimes we offer 3, but I would say the shipping for 3 is not really worth it. No. I would say hit a 6. Like I usually do not wait for free shipping because I don't usually want to. So I tend to be in half cases of 6 because that's like, we don't drink a ton of full bottles in our house. We're only 2 people. And so we have a Coravin as of recently, and we go through bottles pretty slowly. And so I order in 6s. And I would say like, I'm happy to pay the $10 shipping, but if you are someone who drinks more or wants to just order in cases, it's very easy to hit the shipping minimum.
She just made us feel bad, huh?
Why?
Because we go through a bottle to a bottle, and there's only 2 of us too.
The vast majority of our angels go through several bottles a week. I am working my way up. I like to blame the altitude that I live in.
There you go.
Handle it as well. I did move down. I used to live at 8,000 feet, and at 8,000 feet, I could have a single glass before I kind of lost it. Here at 5,000, I'm solid for a half bottle.
Roshni, we want to thank you for being on with us this week. This has been a real treat. I'm not going to speak for Shelley. I am all in on the Naked Wines thing.
Mm-hmm, me too.
And I would, by the way, I'm giving this a phenomenal at this point. This is really good.
It's worked its way up. Started at practically perfect.
Yeah, but I mean,
phenomenal. It is really good.
It is fantastic.
$30.
Yeah. So,
find me a better $30 cab. You can't. Exactly. I mean,
from Napa Valley. Napa Valley.
This quality of a cab from Napa, there's no way you're finding that in Total Wine. I know, I tried. It's just that's where we're unbeatable, is like this quality of wine at $30.
A wine like this from Napa, from a producer that you know is going to be between $100 and $150.
And I would say like
maybe 85. What's that?
Rudy wine tastes like that. Like you feel, I keep calling it an everyday indulgence. And I know that sounds like repetitive, and that's not like a company line. I made that up in my brain, but it's because you're drinking something that feels like it should be. It feels like you found a hack. Like
right.
I don't feel like I should be like I'm not in this tax bracket. I shouldn't be able to drink this wine. But right. You can, and that's so fun. And like, I love that we have like both sides of the spectrum, like this wine, which is like I said, I'm not in this tax bracket, but I like drinking it. But then there's a lot of like really fun, weird experimental wines that I'm like, yeah, like let's try the first ever X varietal grown here. Like that's at the prices that we sell them. I'm happy to give that a shot because it's not a $30 bottle of wine I'm risking it on, and I can always call and get it refunded. It's like, yeah, like I'm happy to try Kyle Burke's first Chardonnay. And yes, it happened to be an award winner, but that's very rare that your first bottle of wine is an award winner. I would happily try anyone's first bottle of wine because I trust that we haven't bought garbage, basically.
And like you said, this is truly risk-free. Okay. Yeah. So if look, we've had this conversation with sommeliers and restaurants and things like this. There's a difference between a bad wine and a wine you don't like.
Yes.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to put words in the mouths of Naked Wine's whole policy, but even if you don't like it, it's not even a bad wine. If you don't like it, they will refund you.
Yeah. Think of it like, when you're at a restaurant and they give you the little sample pour.
Yeah.
And I would say like the vast majority of people don't really know what they're supposed to do with that moment. You're like, oh yeah, okay, well, we already ordered this and you poured it. So like, this is fine, I guess.
Right.
You can imagine that our promise is sort of like that first pour that you make in your home is that moment with the waiter, except that you can send it back. That's not something you should be like, just give us a call and say, hey, like I really hated this wine and it was a huge mistake to order. And we'll credit you for that bottle, because like we're trying to essentially replicate that moment, except instead of it being an uncomfortable moment where you don't know if you're allowed to say, wow, actually that tastes like vinegar and I hate it. You can say, I didn't understand that I don't like Merlot or Syrah or Tempranillo or whatever. Or I wanted to try a Chenin Blanc and turns out I only want butter Chardonnay.
Right.
And you can get a credit and get your butter Chardonnay.
I said no more effing Merlot. Roshni, thank you very much.
Yes,
this has been a real treat.
I'm so sorry that my light got so dark. I didn't anticipate. This room doesn't actually have a light in it. It's all natural. It's my office.
No, so far we still see you. We put our little ring light up just because.
And washed my color right out of my face.
Oh, well, here, let me take that off for the last bit. Well, there we go. See, this is the real thing. With a little, thanks to our sponsors today, Studio 107 and the social web. And with a little bit of knowledge, and once again, I think we did that. With a little bit of knowledge, wine becomes a lot less overwhelming. Check out Naked Wines. Seriously, get your $100 put in your pocket. Get that wine. And Roshni, thank you very much. I'm going to say this one last time. Roshni, Guror.
Yeah. And you know what? If anyone wants to email me, roshni.guror@nakedwines.com, I'll help you pick out your wines.
And I will.
And clearly, I have not really established myself as an educational source here. You both know way more than I do, but I can tell you what I've liked. And I can tell you my favorite wines that we've sold that I've tried. And you can join me on the wine journey of learning.
And by the way, that's where the relationship starts. When someone feels good about talking about the stuff that they may feel a little overwhelmed, they get that entry into the wine world without pain. And totally. I will put your email address on the show notes. So
definitely.
And the notes below.
And the notes below. The notes below what?
YouTube.
Oh, of course. But that's the show notes on YouTube. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Roshni, have a great weekend. Everybody else have a great weekend. And we will see you next week with Major.
Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you. To health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.